We live in this amazing, digitally connected world, but let's be honest, it comes with a pretty steep cost. It costs us our focus, our peace of mind, and sometimes it feels like it costs us our sense of self. So in this explainer, we're going to talk about a simple philosophy to help you get all of that back.
You ever feel like your day is just a constant stream of tiny little interruptions? Or, you pick up your phone to check just one thing, and when you finally look up, 45 minutes have vanished and you have no idea where they went?
And what about at the end of the day? Do you ever feel that low-grade hum of anxiety? That kind of mental exhaustion that has nothing to do with being physically tired? Is it getting harder to just sit and read a book? Or have a conversation without glancing at your phone? Or even just sit alone with your own thoughts? Look, if any of this sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone.
This quote from the writer Andrew Sullivan, it just hits hard, right? It perfectly captures that feeling of being completely consumed by the digital world, the sense that our own minds are no longer completely ours. So, how in the world did we get here?
Okay, so here's the most important thing to get right off the bat. Feeling this distracted is not a personal failure. It's not because you lack willpower. The truth is, you're on the losing end of a massive, high-tech arms race for your attention, and you probably never even knew you're in a fight. See, we like to think of our apps and websites as these neutral tools, right? They're just there to help us connect. But in his book, Digital Minimalism, Cal Newport argues they're actually engineered to be a lot more like digital slot machines, designed for one single purpose, to keep you pulling that lever over and over again.
So how exactly do they do it? Well, it's pretty fascinating and honestly a little scary. First, they use something called intermittent positive reinforcement. That's that unpredictable little rush of dopamine you get from a like or a comment. It's the exact same brain chemistry that makes gambling so addictive. Then, they literally weaponize notifications. Did you know Facebook famously changed its notification icon to red, which is a known alarm color, and clicks just skyrocketed? And finally, they tap into our deepest, most ancient human drive for social approval, making us feel like we absolutely have to check and respond right now.
And that gets to the real heart of the problem. This isn't just about wasting a few hours. It's about that creeping feeling of losing control, of having our moods and our actions dictated by algorithms. The real cost isn't just our time, it's our autonomy.
Okay, so what's the answer? What do we do? And look, it's not about becoming a hermit or throwing your phone into a river. It's about adopting a philosophy called digital minimalism. It's a much more intentional and, frankly, more powerful way to engage with technology.
All right, let's unpack that a bit, because it's really important. This isn't about being anti-technology. It's about being incredibly deliberate. The idea is you start with your values first. Things like deep focus work, real-world relationships, or your hobbies. And then you ask a very simple question about every single digital tool you use.
And this leads to a really profound question. It's about completely reframing how we measure the value of something. It's about moving away from thinking about convenience and toward a much, much more important currency, our life itself.
This is an idea that Henry David Thoreau was talking about over 150 years ago. He had this concept of a new economics. He argued we shouldn't measure cost in dollars, but in hours of our life. So, think about it. 10 hours a week scrolling social media? That's not free. That costs 10 hours of your one precious life. The only question is that a trade you're willing to make?
Okay, so if you start thinking about technology in terms of life hours, the next obvious question is, how do you know which tools are actually worth the price? And that's where the philosophy turns into a really practical, actionable plan. Let's get into the framework, the 30-day digital declutter. Now listen, this is not about punishment or deprivation. It's all about discovery. For 30 days, you just take a break from all the optional tech in your life. The whole point is to clear the slate, to rediscover what you actually enjoy doing in the real world. And then, only at the end, you intentionally reintroduce the tools that give you massive value for the life hours they demand.
So what happens when people actually do this? Honestly, the results are pretty incredible. People who swore they didn't have time to read are suddenly finishing 8 books in a month. They're restarting old hobbies like painting or coding. They're having more actual face-to-face conversations. One person even started and finished their entire hunt for a new home in the time they got back. And this brings us to maybe the most powerful part of this whole transformation. When you get rid of all those low-quality digital distractions, you end up with this void, this empty space. And the key is to fill that void with something that actually recharges you.
Now, let's be super clear. This is the exact opposite of mindlessly scrolling through a feed.
High-quality leisure actually requires some effort. It's learning an instrument, or fixing something with your hands, or getting deep into a board game with friends. Sometimes it's hard, right? It takes effort. And that is exactly the point. That's why it's so rewarding. It energizes you instead of just draining you.
So the book breaks this down into 3 main pillars. First, using your skills to make things in the physical world. Second, seeking out structured, real-world social activities, like joining a team or a book club. And third, and this one might be the most important of all, making time for solitude.
And that brings us to this incredible quote from Blaise Pascal. It really nails why that third pillar, solitude, is so critical. Solitude isn't about being lonely. It's about being alone with your own thoughts. I mean, think about it. Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, would escape the chaos of the White House to a quiet cottage just to think through the Emancipation Proclamation. That's where real clarity happens.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. Digital minimalism is not about running away from the 21st century. It's actually about mastering it. It's about finally putting technology back in its proper place, as your servant, not your master. You know, there's a really powerful example of this in action, and it comes from a surprising place, the Amish. During a time they call Rumspringa, their teenagers go out and experience the modern world with all its technology. But afterward, a staggering 80 to 90% choose to return to their community. So why? Why would they do that? Because after trying both, they intentionally choose the life that aligns with their values. It's just this incredible reminder that when you choose with intention, it's way more powerful than just going with whatever's convenient.
So really, the bottom line is this. By decluttering your digital life, you aren't just getting more time back. You are literally reclaiming your mental firepower, that finite energy you need for deep thought, for creativity, and for real, genuine connection. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. You've got digital maximalism on one side, that's saying yes to everything, which leaves you with tons of clutter and almost no focus. And on the other side, you have digital minimalism, being intentional, which gives you very little clutter and a whole lot of focus.
And that is the ultimate advantage here. So, the final question isn't about what you need to give up. It's about what you're going to build, what you're going to learn, and who you're going to become with all of that reclaimed attention. With your focus finally back in your own control, what will you create?